Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on the Driple Studios channel. Today I'm going to be making a dodge game, but let's jump straight in. So here we have a blank scratch project. What we want to do is, I'm just going to firstly rename the sprites to player, just so I can better keep track of my sprites, and I'm also going to reduce the size down to 75. I'm then going to change the y-axis to about minus 130 would be good. 130, 140, that's good. Right, so now I've got the player sprite in the right position. We're now going to move on to making the movement for the player. So the first thing we want to do is go to the events tab, grab a when green flag clicked. We want to go to motion and grab a go to. This will just set the player into the middle of the screen every time the game starts. What we now want to do is get another when green flag clicked, drag it under, go to control, grab a forever, and grab two, just grab one if then block. We want then to go to sensing, go down to key space pressed. We want to go and select A. So I'm going to be using the A and D keys for this. You can, however, use the arrow keys or whatever keys you want. I'm just going to use the A and D because that's what I'm used to. So once we get this, we then want to go to motion and we want to grab two blocks from motion. We want to grab a change X by and point in direction. Now, because we've selected the A key, this will be the left. However, currently, if we leave this as it is, these are the values that we need if we want to move the player to the right. So if we click on 10 and we just make that a minus 10 and point in direction, if we just make that a minus 90, now it's set up to be moving left. One thing that is very important to note, however, is that we need to go over to the direction here while selecting the player sprite. We want to click on it and we want to select the left and right setting just so the player will actually swap from the left to the right instead of doing like a full 360 circle move. Once we've done that, we can now right click on the if then, just click duplicate, drag it underneath, and then we can select the A and we can choose it to your right key. So I'm going to, as I mentioned, I'm going to be using A and D. D will be right. So to change this, we just want to click 10 and we just want to set that back to 90 like so. Now if we test this out, as you can see, our player moves. We can change the speed. All we need to do is just change X by. So if we go -5 and 5, as you can see, our player is now slower. However, I'm going to keep it at the 10s for now. So now that we've got the player set up, we can now go ahead and set up the thing that will be shooting the bullets at our player. So for me, I'm personally going to be using a bat. So I'm just going to go to the choose a sprite option down here, choose a sprite. I'm going to select the bat. Once the bat is now in my project, I'm now going to set it to 0, 0, and then I'm going to set the size to 75. Actually, I'm going to set the size to 50, just so it's smaller and takes up less of the screen. Now we've got the bat, we are going to be setting up the movement for the bat. So what we need is a when green flag clicked, and we need a forever and if then else block. Inside of this if then, we now need to check the position of the bat. We can do that by grabbing and checking equals to. So we can check if the X position of the bat is equal to a certain value. So if I set this to -200, I can pop that in there, and I can grab a glide 1 second to, oh that's the wrong one, to 200 and 140. So then I can go to operators, grab pick random, do that, and I'm just going to duplicate it and set that to 200. Now as you can see, the bat will move from side to side at a random speed constantly. Now with the movement done, we can get started on creating the bat, creating the projectiles. To do this, we can go back to the events tab, grab a when green flag clicked, then go to a forever if then, and we can go to operators, grab an equal, and then grab a pick random. So this will just create the odds of the bat shooting a projectile. So I'm going to go from 1 to 15, and I'm going to set it to 5. So if the random number is 5, it will then shoot a projectile. To shoot the projectile, I'm firstly just going to go switch costume to bat. We don't need bat D, so I'm just going to remove it, and I'm going to change it to bat C. I'm then going to wait 0.75 seconds, and then I will switch it back to costume A. Now that only changes the costume. So if we just click play to preview, let's just quickly set it to costume A. When the bat changes, it will shoot a bullet. So it's shooting decently often with variation. As you can see, it just didn't shoot one for a while. So that's good. That is what we want. I'm just going to quickly switch that back to back A. But now we need to actually have a way of creating and shooting the bullet. To do this, it's pretty simple. Just go to events and grab a broadcast message. Drag that underneath here and just click on new message and click. I'm just going to call it shoot. You can call it whatever you want. Just make sure it's enabled something relevant to what its function will do. Okay, I have gone ahead and created my bullet sprite almost. So as you can see here, I have poop. I've gone ahead and also created the main costume, which is just very simple brown spiky thing, and then a little animation it will play when it hits the ground. So what we want to do is just go to when green flag clicked. For my case, I'm going to just set it to costume 1. If you don't have that and you only have this one costume, then don't worry about it. You don't need a little animation. It's just a little something that makes it look a little bit nicer. So what I want to do is set it to hide. So we want to grab a hide block in the looks tab, and we just want it to hide instantly. The next thing we want to do is go and grab a when I receive shoot message, and we want to go down to control and create a clone of myself. Because we're doing it as clones, it means we don't need to have multiple sprites of the bullet. We can only have one sprite, and we can create multiple instances of it, which is a lot more efficient, and it's a lot simpler to do than constantly having to create more and more sprites over and over again. So what we want to do is grab a when I start as clone. So when we want it to start the clone, we want to switch it to the first costume one. We want to switch it to the first costume once again, and then we want to tell it to go to a certain position. So currently right now we want it to be below the position of the bat. So it's currently at there, so if we show it and we just want to do it so it's below the position of the bat, so about there. Sure, let's do 90. So we want to go to 90 on the y-axis, but then on the x we need it to be on the bat's position. To do this we need to go to variables, and as you can see I've already got my variable here, but we've got bat's x position. To set that up we need to go back to the bat sprite, and we need to go to events when green flag clicked, grab that, go to control, grab it forever, go to variables, and we need to set the bat's x position to the x position. This will now forever set the bat's x position variable to the position of the bat on the x axis. Heading back into the bullet sprite, we can now go to variables and grab the bat's x position and put that in to this block here. After doing that, we can then go to looks and we can show, and as you can see, if we just click play, it creates the poo where the bat is. What we then want to do is go to control and grab a repeat until. We then need to go to operators and grab a OR, whack that in the repeat until, then go to sensor and grab 2 touching mouse pointer sensing blocks. We want to change mouse pointer to player and the other one to edge. We then want to head to motion and grab a change Y by, and I'm going to change this to -10 just because I feel like it's a good speed for the bullet to fall at. Obviously you can change it to whatever you want, but let's say we touch the poo mid-air or the bullet mid-air, it stops in its place, which is what we want. We then need to check to see if it's touching either the edge or the player. So we're going to now make the condition if it's touching the edge. So I'm just going to quickly right click and duplicate the touching edge block, put that in the if then, and if it's touching the edge, I'm now going to play the animation. But if you don't have an animation, you can quickly just grab a hide block like this. That way it freezes up, and there we go. No, sorry, you don't want to grab a hide block. You can go to control and you can just grab a delete this clone, just because if you hide it, all the clones are still there, whereas if you delete it, the clone's deleted. However, because I'm not doing this, I'm going to be creating an animation. So in my case, I'm just going to quickly do this off camera, just because my animation works how my animation works, and I'm assuming if you already have an animation, you know how to set it up. Okay, so I'm back and I've set my animation up. However, one thing I did forget to mention is that we don't need an if then, we need an if then else, just so we can do the other option of the bullet touching the player instead. So now that I've got the animation all set up, we can just go to grab a if then block, put that in the else, and grab the touching player, put that in, and we can now go to events and grab a new event, and this new event will be touching bullet. Mine's for pooped on. Regardless of what it's called, we then need to head back to the player and grab a when I receive. So when the player receives pooped on, we can then go to the costumes and create a special costume for the cat, which symbolizes that they've hit a bullet. Right, here is my costume for when the cat gets pooped on. Quickly made it, it's nothing special, but it's very different to the normal one, so it does the job. So what we need to do now is we need to go to when I received pooped on, we need to go to looks, switch costume to costume 2, and then we can end the game. So we can just grab a stop or button. But because we have different costumes, we now need to make sure that we're always setting it to costume 1 when the green flag is clicked. So if we play, as you can see, my animation plays, but if we get hit by a piece of poop or a bullet, it switches to that and ends the game. That is all for this tutorial. If you guys did enjoy, please do leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. If you want to see this game taken further and how to add scores, more animations, or just anything in general, please let me know in the comments below. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.